Okay, so what we're going to focus on today and after Easter is we're going to take, so what we've been doing is we've been expanding that trial balance sheet. So we have the trial balance that has everything going on it. The income statement has the revenue and expenses on it. And then the balance sheet has the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity on it. And then underneath, we determined if there was a net income or a net loss so that we could get all the columns to be the same number. That's where we're at. So what we have to do today is to take the income statement and transfer it to the general journal. That's the final piece of this. So, couple of things. When you're running a business, you always got to stay organized. Okay, so no piles. The worksheet, so this is what you've been working on. It's a really handy summary of everything that's been going on in your company. We're going to focus on the income statement, specifically the revenue and expenses, and the net income versus net loss. Okay. Money invested into a business, capital, is done so in the hopes that the business will make more money. So it takes money to make money. Okay. So a couple of things. Revenue is money into the company. Expenses is money out of the company. So these are, again, necessary expenses that you need to run your business. So first thing, these are called temporary accounts. So revenue and expense accounts are called temporary. Typically what we're going to do here after Easter is we're going to do something called closing out the temporary accounts. Meaning at the end of each accounting cycle, you want to return those accounts to a zero balance so that you're always starting fresh. You're always starting with a zero balance so that you know exactly how much money you're making month to month, quarter to quarter, whatever you're doing. So for today, we're just going to focus on the revenue and expenses, and we're going to take this information and put it onto a general journal in a fairly specific way. So this is what you've got so far. So what we're going to focus on today is just the income statement section of this. When you come back from Easter, we're going to focus on the balance sheet portion of it. Okay? So right now, you can see that the revenue column is 2,000. The expenses column is 150. So we know that revenue is bigger than expenses, so we write net income. If I go 2,000 minus 150, I get 1,850. So I put 8, so if I debit 1,850 on the income statement, I have to credit 1,850 on the balance sheet. By doing that, I get the same number here and the same number there. So that's what we did last day. Okay? What we're going to do today is we're going to take this information right here and we're going to put it into a general journal. So what does that look like? So unfortunately, guys, it has to be set up exactly in this way. So you're going to go, income statement is the name of the form. You put the date, you put the company name. So you'd write the word revenue in, and then you indent your revenue accounts. So if you've got 3 revenue accounts, you indent them in, and their balances all go in the credit column. Underneath that, you do expenses as the title, and then you indent in all of your expenses. Okay? Whoops, that arrow shouldn't be there. Those go in the debit column. And again, if you look back to your balance sheet, we've got the revenues in the credit column, the expenses are in the debit column. So I haven't changed that. So I'm going revenue, credit column, expenses, debit column. Then we can see that we had a net income, okay, and we put it in the debit column. So here's what's different. You do total expenses, but you put it in the credit column. And then you're going to subtract these two numbers and you call it net income. Okay? Because the revenue is bigger than the expenses. So essentially what's happening here is we are ignoring the debits and the credits. The revenue will always go in the second column. Expenses go in the first, but the total goes in the second. Essentially, that second column, we use it for our totals. So total revenue, total expenses, and then finally you write net income and you put that underneath in the second column. So what happens if we have a net loss? So here's another one. So here's our revenue. Here's our expenses. So the revenue is 1,000. The total expenses was 1,350. So this time it's a net loss. So to make our two columns equal to each other, I had to credit 1,350, and then on the balance sheet I had to debit 1,350. So that we get the 1,350, 1,350. So what this looks like, just this, it stays exactly the same except for the word net income versus net loss. So revenue, so put your title, indent the name, indent the account name, put it into the second column. Expenses, indent your expenses, they go in the first column. The total goes in the second column. And then because when you go 1,000 minus 1,350, you end up with a negative, but don't write the negative in, just write 350 in. Where you're accounting for the negative is the fact that you're calling it net loss instead of net income. So I'm just going to change my pages here. Is that what I want? Yes. Okay. So this is the net income sheet. This is the net loss sheet. So revenue, second column. Revenue, second column. Expenses, first column. Expenses, first column. Total expense, second column. Total expense, second column. When you subtract, you ended up with a net income, second column. When I subtracted, I ended up with a net loss, second column. So the only thing that changes from net income to net loss is this word right here. So if revenue is bigger than expenses, you write net income. If revenue is smaller than expenses, you write net loss. But the columns that you're putting the numbers in is the exact same for both examples. Okay? So all you're going to do for me, short and sweet, okay, is you're going to do two of these. So the first one, so again, these are the numbers that you're working with. You're going to put those onto a general journal. And then there's another one. Here's the numbers you're going to be working with. You put those onto the general journal. Okay? So it's a short little assignment. We're not going to go on tomorrow because we are missing a few people for the band trip. So if you get this done today, you don't have to come to class tomorrow. Easter break starts early. And like I said, after the break, we are going to pick up the pace and do a little bit more in each class. And so we're going to go a little faster. Again, the goal is trying to get you guys done before June 1st or right around there. Okay? So head on down to the lab. You're doing the lessons called Income Statement Revisited, I think. And like I said, you're going to do two of them for me and you're going to submit those to me. And I will meet you down there.